What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down a wide receiver football IQ quiz. So we're going to be asking you a series of questions based on pre-snap looks here from the wide receiver perspective, how you guys would structure your routes against that look, and I'm going to give you a chance to answer it, play the video full speed, and walk you through why it's correct or why it's wrong. So I hope this video helps you guys out. I hope it could teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver and you guys would like a 1 month long daily training schedule with all of the wide receiver drills and gym exercises you should be doing, check out that very first link in the description below for our ultimate wide receiver training schedule. It's a month of the exact sets, reps, exercises, examples of each exercise that wide receivers should be doing in the offseason. Very first link below if you're interested. Let's get started with this video. So now, first clip here. So this example, how would you guys run? So if you guys aren't familiar with their quiz format style videos, I'm going to give you guys a scenario, like a route scenario, fade, post, corner, whatever, against a specific DB look. I'm going to ask you guys how you would run that look, give you a chance to pause the video, think about your answer, and then we'll break it down. So this particular question is going to be a two-part question. I'm going to ask you about the route, and then I'm going to play the route, and I want you to think about what the wide receiver could have done better. Okay, so now, first part of the question, how would you guys run a fade route versus this type of coverage from this DB? So a fade route versus this DB who is in catch technique. So you guys can go ahead and pause the video and think about what you want to do. So pause the video. Okay, let's break it down. So when we have a DB who's in catch technique, what does that exactly mean? That means that a DB is trying to essentially catch us. That's why they call it that. Now, that means that he's trying to get this wide receiver to just take off and try to run around him if he were to be running a fade route. So this DB can get hands on us, squeeze us to the sideline, and give the quarterback no room to make a throw. So what we have to do, if you guys said that you want to close the distance with this DB, attack this DB, threaten him inside, then take the outside release, that would be 100% correct. Now, you would not want to just try to run around this guy. You would not want to close the space, attack outside, take inside release. He's shaded a little bit to the inside and catch. Let's close the space and let's threaten him to the inside. So let's play this full speed. Now I want you to think about what this wide receiver did wrong on this rep, because he ultimately gets covered. Stingley's able to lock this thing up, make a play. What do you think he did wrong? I'm going to play it one more time and I want you guys to think about your answers. What could this wide receiver have done better right here? So go ahead and pause the video if you'd like. Think about your answer. So now, what this wide receiver did wrong in this case is, so obviously he closed the distance. He did exactly what we were talking about doing against catch technique. I got to close the space. I got to attack his toes. I got to threaten him to the inside. I got to make him uncomfortable. But now where he went wrong is, you see when he makes this cut, this is Colin Johnson right here. When he makes this cut inside, you see how he starts to lean back. His pad level starts to lean back because he kind of reaches outside of his frame. Now, when we lean back, it is very, very tough for me, because my chest is a little bit higher than usual, to make a sharp cut. So in theory, when we attack this DB's leverage and we hit him to the inside, what am I trying to do at this point? I'm trying to get skinny and I'm trying to restack. But because he leaned back with his pad level, his launch point off of the cut went very wide. So instead of him making this cut and then going straight hip to hip with the DB, getting skinny, being able to restack and get him by a step, he goes very wide. His launch point is to the sideline because he picks up his pad level. So he's not able to make a tight angle. And if that DB speed turns, he's got an easy angle of recovery to get back over the top. But imagine if Johnson, instead of being there, going flat, he was here, hip to hip, he could actually get some space, or at least get a step on this DB to give the quarterback an easier time to throw it downfield. And we threaten him more vertically if I had to run a route like something underneath, like a comeback, a dig, a stop route, whatever it might be. So if that's what you guys said on the second part of this question, he went too wide, he didn't get skinny and wasn't able to restack, you would be 100% correct. So let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Johnson closing the space, but we need to make sure that we get skinny. Always getting skinny, always trying to be hip to hip with DBs on our routes. Okay, so now, versus this pre-snap look, this is a two-part question, but it's not going to be so much, we're not going to show what the wide receiver did wrong. It's going to be a two-part pre-snap question. So how would you guys run a 12-yard dig route versus this coverage? Okay, and now what type of break would you use at the top of this route? Okay, 12-yard dig, and what type of break would you use on this 12-yard dig, the way you structure the route? So you guys can go ahead and pause the video and think about what you would do. Okay, let's break this thing down. So obviously, number one thing as a wide receiver, the reason why we do these quiz type videos is to get you guys thinking. You know what I mean? You don't want to think on the field. You want to think in the offseason. You want to think in the film room. So when you actually get onto the field, it's second nature. It's a habit. You can just see a pre-snap look and you're ready to react. So pre-snap, I come up to the line. What do we see? We see outside shade press, and you have to run an inside breaking route. So it seems like a pretty easy scenario, but we need to think about why is he outside shade press in the first place? He's trying to force us inside, probably because he has some kind of safety help to the inside. He's trying to prevent the outside route. So if you guys said attack his leverage, take the inside release, work to stack, and then break it off, you would be correct. Or if you said like lean into him at the break point and kind of like stick off, that would be correct. And if you guys said for your break point, you want to use like a rocker step or a single cut, that would also be correct. You do not want to snap down on this. Now, personally, you can snap down on a dig, but when it's man coverage, I just don't really think it's necessary. So you see what this wide receiver does. He attacks his leverage, threatens the DB's leverage, holds him to the outside shade. Let's hold him there. Let's freeze him there. Let's make sure he stays honest so I can take a free inside release. Now, when he takes this inside release, he's selling vertical, trying to restack, getting skinny, and he breaks this thing off of 1 foot. Would I have liked him to get a little bit tighter to this DB off this thing? He kind of goes a little bit wide like the last example. Yeah, I for sure would like him to be hip to hip with the guy so he could restack. But again, at the end of the day, we just need to make sure I get skinny. If you can get skinny, we break this thing off in a single step, we can get separation. Do not just drift off into the middle of the field because you're drifting off right into that DB's help. Okay, so I hope that makes sense, fellas. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. So if you said attack, leverage, take inside release, work to stack or lean into him, and if you said it's a single cut or a rocker step, that would be correct. Especially if we stack him and he is trailing my back hip, I do not want to snap down because he is just going to run right into me. Let's play this again, full speed one more time. Great job by this wide receiver attacking leverage. Would like to see him get a little bit tighter, but overall, great route. Okay, so now, next example we're going to be discussing here is what release would you choose against a physical DB who is right in front of your face? Now, there are 3 separate answers here that you can use. 3 separate answers, and we're going to go over all 3 of them. But if you got a physical DB right up on the line and press, you know he's going to get hands, give me 1 out of 3 releases that you could use. So you guys go ahead and pause the video and think about what you would do. So pause the video. Okay, let's break this down. So number 1 release that you could use, and that's what this wide receiver uses in this example, is a step back. So a step back release is when you got a physical guy's getting hands right in your face. You just take a step back off the line to create some extra space for yourself. Now, this move is heavily criticized because a lot of people abuse it. A lot of people do this step back and they create space, and then they do 8,000 moves back here trying to get this DB to pick a direction. We got to step back, and just like this wide receiver does, we got to step back and go. You cannot waste time with the step back because if you step back and you kill time, you're not going vertical, you're not attacking, and the DB is essentially doing his job. His job in press coverage is to disrupt timing with you and with your quarterback. So if we step back but we waste a bunch of time, DB did his job. He doesn't need to jam us every play, just like how I don't need to break his ankles on every single release. So now, what are the other 2 releases you could use? You could use something called a split release. So a split release is where this front foot goes out, back foot goes up, even with the front foot. So you pretty much just split your feet. It's a way to kind of freeze the DB, but it gets you to a position of balance because you were splitting into a strong base. So if he wants to get hands and be physical, that can kind of give us some like balance, I guess you could say, some stability with your lower half to be able to get off the jam. And then the other thing you could do is you could do like a hesitation slide to the outside. DB wants to get physical and lunge at us. We could slide to the outside and try to get out of the way and then take off over the top, like a slide and go release. So if you said any one of those 3 releases, you would be 100% correct on this. Let's play it again, full speed. Great job using that step back and not killing a bunch of time. You got to step back and you got to go if you're going to use that step back release. Okay, so now, next example here. This is a route from Ja'Marr Chase. How would you guys run a whip route versus this coverage? 5 yards off, and he has inside shade. How would you guys run a whip route? So I'm going to draw it up on the screen for those of you that don't know whip route. It's a pivot route. Some people have names for it or different names for it, but it's up 3, break to the slant, then whip back out. So, and your chest faces the line of scrimmage the entire time. So how would you guys run a whip versus this coverage? You guys can go ahead and pause the video. All right, let's break this thing down. So now, you got to understand, remember, like we talked about, every single snap as a wide receiver, we need to understand what the DB is playing that coverage or playing that leverage for. So this DB is lined up inside shade, 5 yards off. So why is he lined up inside shade, 5 yards off? Because number one, he's trying to prevent the slant. And that's tough on us because we are trying to make this route look like a slant, but we're whipping it back out. Now, a lot of guys, don't understand that on the goal line, this DB is not going to back up. He's going to do whatever possible to not backpedal. So, let's say, for example, if you stem him to the inside, he's not going to weave to the inside and keep his leverage. He's just going to sit right there. Because if he starts to backpedal, that's just an easy slant. He's giving up the slant. Even if it's 2 yards in front of his face, the spacing might be off, but he's taught to never backpedal because that's an easy touchdown for the offense. So, knowing those things, knowing that he's trying to prevent the slant, knowing that he's just going to sit right there, when I'm running this whip route, I don't need to attack his outside shoulder and sell like a diamond release. So if you guys said diamond release to the outside, get him to flip open, slip underneath, and then whip back out, that might just take too long. So what you would want to do is what Ja'Marr Chase does here. You square him up, and then we whip to the inside, and we snap this thing off to win. Now, let's talk about that. When he squares him up, what does this DB do? He keeps his leverage to the inside, right? So what? We are running an outside breaking route anyways. It's just off of a double move. So we attack him. He keeps his leverage. Notice how he's not backpedaling. So now when I break to the slant, he's really going to overcommit because that is his leverage responsibility. Again, fellas, there are a million different ways to run routes, but understanding why a DB plays a certain way, what his leverage responsibilities are, what his coverage responsibilities are, can make it very easy on us when it comes to picking a move, picking a release, knowing how to run the route. So when he sells this slant, he knows DB's going to be overcommitted to it because he's going to do whatever possible to not give up the slant, and that's when we can snap it off and run that whip. So if you guys said square him up and then break in front of him to sell the whip, that would be correct. And I know it's rare because normally if we have to run a slant, we'd want to maybe attack him, then go 3 steps outside, get him to open up, then run the slant. But dude, on a whip route, you're running an outside breaking route. So all we really need to do is get him to move off that platform, keep his leverage, and there's no better way to do that than to attack him and then sell. Let's play this again, full speed one more time. Great job by Chase squaring him up, getting him to move on that slant, getting him to bite on that slant by selling it correctly, and then winning on the whip. All right, fellas, really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you would like a 4-week wide receiver gym and field workout schedule, everything wide receivers should do in the offseason, check out that very first link in the description below. I'll see you guys next time.